In India, we have April showers, which mean that we have the blossom in April.
Mhm.
So that's when you want the rains to come, and you don't want them to be excessive. You don't want them, they need to be exactly how much you need for that blossom to open. And then you also need a backing to make sure that the crop has set. When you don't have that, or you have erratic rainfall, or you have erratic temperature rise, then your crop is not going to set and you're not going to have coffee, basically.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and I am honored to have this podcast series with you with returning guest Komal Sable from South India Coffee Co. Komal, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you for having me again, Lee.
It's so much fun. We're going to have a fantastic conversation because we're talking about India, and India has had a very interesting year in coffee. Komal, before we get started, please remind everyone about you and South India Coffee Co.
Amazing. So again, thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Komal Sable, and I run South India Coffee Co. with my wonderful husband, Akshay. We have basically, what we do is we run a direct trade supply chain of specialty Indian coffee. We have our office in the UK, and we work with 6 other countries. The idea is to have different producers and showcase Indian specialty coffee all across the world. And of course, we have our own farm where we're doing a lot of research on climate resilient coffee species.
Now, shout out to Andrew Tolley, who introduced us like a couple of years ago, because it was a wonderful beginning of me getting to learn about what you and Akshay are doing. Shout out to Akshay as well. And anyone who's not following South India Coffee Co., go follow their Instagram for so much knowledge, but also for the comedy that comes from it is worth it just to see Akshay roast Komal's brewing, which is completely unfounded. I have had Komal's brewing, which is what I'm trying to get to, is like because of the introduction from Andrew, I got to come spend time with you at your farm, see the amazing work that you're doing. I have tasted your brewing. It is beautiful. So
thank you. Say this out loud. Hear this.
Akshay's full of shit. It is delicious coffee. Your brewing is fantastic. But the wonderful thing that I got to see is how much innovation that you're doing on the farm and how much testing you're doing with regards to plant genetics and different agricultural products. It was like, as I said the last time you came on the podcast, it was like being in a fairy tale, being on your farm, walking into your forests and seeing the pepper trees and the shade trees and not pepper trees, sorry, the pepper growing on the trees and the magnificence of what it feels like and how humbling it is to stand in a coffee forest. It's not a coffee forest, but that's what it felt like. And I feel like the direction that all agriculture needs to go is probably agroforestry if we're going to be able to survive with what's going on. And in this series, we're going to be talking about the future of coffee in India because India has a very interesting way that it's set up its coffee economy. Now, in India this year, you guys have had some I don't know how unique it is, but it feels like it's unique. Some very unique climatic situations this year. So what has been going on with regards to the climate and India and coffee producing?
Yeah, so I was just actually looking at my climate data and the rain gauges and all the data that we collect or every day. And can you believe it, Lee? We didn't have any rain in March. We had complete dry spell in March and April. Then we had February, March, April dry spell, not a single drop of rain. And then and temperatures went up to 38 degrees, at least on our farm. We are by the backwaters of the Harangi River, which is it's the Harangi Dam. I'm sorry, and that's where we are. So especially where our research is happening, there is a lot of humidity around it. The fact that temperatures went up to 38 degrees, we have never seen those temperatures on coffee farms, right? We had to do a lot of irrigation, and of course, at that point, when everything is that dry, you end up, what happens is your plants are suffering. It is difficult for them. What is the factor that is like saving them is the shade trees. So the amount of shade that you have is helping them keep that microclimate a little cooler. Then come July, so April, May, February, March, April was dry. May, June, July. July, we had 719 of rain in that month. Up till now, we've recorded around 1,240 of rain for this entire year. So from January till we're in August now, end of August, we've recorded that in our area. So we've had a really harsh summer where the plants struggled quite a bit. And then we have had a really, really wet July. Let's see what happens now, because I think the rains have picked up again this month. So we'll see what happens in the next few months.
Having lived in Australia for so long, I am being born in Australia. We were in drought for a very long time. And what we learnt during that time was that the drought doesn't just impact the plants, it has a drastic effect on the soil. And the soil turns to like concrete, doesn't it? And so what was the impact?
So the thing is, we are kind of, especially where our commercial, like our main farm is, which has been growing coffee for 5 generations in that area, that soil is extremely rich. So you don't it doesn't happen that, that soil becomes that hardened that you don't know what to do with it. Because again, we have a lot of shade cover, and we specifically have kept that amount of shade, which is a lot more than most of the farms around, which does not allow as much as precipitation from the soil itself.
Okay.
That is one good thing about it. However, there are some blocks which are slightly more open, and we do see that translate where you have the soil completely hardened up, and even if the water touches the ground, it's not actually soaking it in, it's just bouncing off. But having said that, like that is in a few areas, in a few blocks. Most of the blocks that we have is quite dense in terms of the shade cover that we have.
Great. So agroforestry helped when you went from extreme drought, lots of heat, the soil was impacted, then the rains come, and the farms that aren't using agroforestry had to feel the impact of that, because the water then sits on top of the soil and creates kinds of flooding areas and things like that. But those who have agroforestry didn't quite feel the impact of that as much, if I understand it correctly.
I would say that because I think it's important to kind of understand how, again, there are, I would look at it in every scenario is different. And we were talking about this earlier, that every terroir, every farm, whether it can be even like just a kilometer away from you, may have different conditions. So maybe they were growing rice earlier, and then the kind of soil that is there is very different to if you have been growing coffee for the longest
Right.
time. So each one has their own set of, the way you will have
The
to take care of your
ecosystem.
land will be very, very different.
Mm.
And again, we said this earlier, one size does not fit all. You have to kind of adapt to each and every one scenario and see what works for you.
So when you have, I'm going to ask a very obvious question that I don't know the answer to. When you have coffee in a situation where it's experiencing no water and very high temperatures, what happens to the coffee tree? Why is that bad for coffee? Because I'm sure that the answer is very obvious, but there's a lot of people who don't know the answer.
I mean, your regular, so let's go into just your basic species, which we all are growing, which is Arabica and Robusta at this point of time. Arabicas are, it is meant, so we all know that actually Arabica requires a little less water as compared to Robusta. But it can, and it also tolerates very mild temperatures, whereas Robusta can tolerate slightly higher temperatures. Now, if you have a really hot summer, or if you have a really harsh summer, which is where you do not have even a little bit of rain or a little bit of moisture in the soil, then your plants are going to suffer in terms of whether it be yield, whether also depends on which part of the year you are not getting that rain that you need, right? So if you're getting, usually we want, in India, we have April showers, which mean that we have the blossom in April. So that's when you want the rains to come, and you don't want them to be excessive. You don't want them, they need to be exactly how much you need for that blossom to open. And then you also need a backing to make sure that the crop has set. When you don't have that, or you have erratic rainfall, or you have erratic temperature rise, then your crop is not going to set and you're not going to have coffee, basically.
And is that because the plant is stressed or confused, or both?
It's stressed. So you definitely want the plant to stress for a bit after your harvest, after everything happens, your plant is going to stress. That is fine. But you need to understand how much you can stress the plant, because at the end of the day, what does a living organism survive on? It's food, so essentially it's nutrition, sunlight, and air.
Water. Yeah.
Water. You need that. If you don't give it that, after a certain point of time, it's going to essentially die.
And is that the threat? Like, as India experiences the weather conditions that it experienced this year, was there a threat that this could impact the coffee trees so severely that they would be ruined?
So we did not, at least on our farm, we did not have the resources to set up, finish our complete irrigation. So we did lose out a lot of, almost like with the very high temperatures, we did lose out at least like 30% is what we would probably have lost in terms of the crop setting.
Right.
Now, that has been tough. I am not sure exactly what's going to happen. I think a lot of them would have managed to irrigate and would have managed to, take care of the setting, and also like the crop setting would have been fine. We will only get to know once the harvest, essentially we will get to know once this monsoon season is over and how much coffee has actually set and what is the prediction in the next few months.
Can having rain later make up for the lack of rain earlier? Dumb question. I'm really sorry about that, but
I don't. So no, I think it's important to have that rain at the right time, especially if you're not irrigating or if you do not have sprinkler systems in place. It's important to have the rain at that point of time, only because you want the blossom to open. You want that rain for that particular activity for the plant. Now, that is why you want, what would happen. So when we have rains during harvest, right? That's not good. That's terrible. So you don't want, so even if you have rains in November and December, that's not worth, it's not good for the coffee plants.
Why isn't it good for the coffee plant?
Because you have crop on the plants. The crop is, if you've already started harvesting, there would be, if it is heavy rainfall, you might lose out the crop. Essentially, the crop will just fall on the ground.
Okay.
Or the crop would split so the cherry might split on the plants. And I have made these videos before on how the cherry splits and what happens to the coffee.
Because it's waterlogged, like it's just taken up so much water that the cherry just splits.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, okay. Excuse my ignorance.
So essentially what happens is you've got your cycle of the cherry going from a pinhead stage to a ripe stage. Once it starts ripening, and then you have once it reaches the full ripeness, it's essentially expanded and it has very little movement in that cherry. When water is hitting it, and it essentially would, any ripe fruit would,
it's going to detach.
Think about a ripe fruit, and it's just going to, it's bombarded with water, it's going to split.
Yep.
And then all the juices are going to come out, and the sweetness of the fruit, you're going to lose on it.
And I think that my ignorance demonstrates a really important point that I'm trying to make, is that when somebody like me, who has spent all of my career on the consuming end of the market, engages with a coffee producer in conversations about this, the majority of what I should be doing is asking questions, rather than going to a coffee producer and saying, I want you to create this co-ferment because that's what I want to sell to my customer. Or like, there's just so much we don't understand on the consuming end about what is experienced at origin. And we need more conversation happening. We need more people engaging with producers about these questions, even if it sounds silly. And I know that, Komal, you don't mind answering these kinds of questions. But it does demonstrate that even someone who's been in the industry for 20 years, there is so much that I have to learn about what's going on at origin. And there's no shame in anybody not knowing these things. There is a shame in not engaging and learning, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of knowledge exchange that can happen. And I really appreciate when roasters do come and say that this is what other producers are doing in different parts of the world. And that kind of knowledge exchange in terms of post-processing, harvesting is invaluable when we are not doing those processes, or we can tweak certain processes. But I think it's really important, and I say this to a lot of my roaster friends and buyers, that please come down to see what we're doing. And kind of 1 day or 2 days of just harvesting coffee in these conditions and seeing what we're doing would kind of give you a very different perspective on how coffee is grown and produced and processed as compared to another origin. And I think this is something that I would appreciate a lot when, we have knowledge exchange programs with other producers who are doing fantastic processing. If that information can be translated to different parts, or to us as a farm, or us as an organization, where we can impart this information to all the producers that we work with, just to increase the quality of coffee, that would be fantastic.
And can I ask, what? So I spoke to a few coffee roasters from different countries before this conversation to gauge. How many of you know what's going on in India this year? with regards to climate and what they're impacting, and none of them knew. How important, and so my question is, how important is it for coffee roasters to understand what's going on at origin with regards to climate? From a producer's perspective, why do you think this is important for them to know?
Lee, I think the thing is, we all are bombarded with this word climate change, and we have it's, but we don't, when you go into the in-depth of things, right? Like you really don't understand what is happening at every origin. Every origin has some or the other issue.
Yeah.
The crux of the issue is, and I saw this with one of the reports that we did with a climate study that we did. It shows that we have had almost 300 hours of overheating as for in last year as compared to what should be. So
that's excessive overheating.
Overheating, yes. Now, if you have that, and the crux of it is the temperatures are rising. It is difficult to grow coffee. Coffee grows in certain temperatures, and it does not in certain temperatures. And that is what is happening. We are going, the scale is just increasing, and that is not good for coffee, right? I think this information, a lot of the producers know, a lot of the roasters know.
Okay.
The basics of it. Going into the nitty-gritties with the producer who you're working with, or that lies with each and every roaster and the relationship you have with those particular roasters or importers. What is the kind of relationship you have? Are you able to kind of pick up the phone or send out an email and say, hey guys, tell me what's going on? Because remember, when you are asking for this information, or even for me, it's easy to give out this information. A lot of producers, it is a lot, because we are always logging rainfall, we are logging temperatures, all of that is happening. Giving further and further information gets more difficult for smaller producers because they don't have the time to do all of this. But it is up to you as a consumer or a person who's buying the coffee to kind of ask these questions and say, hey, what's going on? Or I know it's not possible to come down to origin every single year and engage. It's not possible. I understand that, because you are running a small business on the other side as well. And we have to be mindful as producers, as importers, as exporters. I think the entire supply chain needs to be mindful of each and everyone's role in the supply chain.
Yep.
It's very easy for me to say, hey, I'm having a difficult time. But what is that difficult time, and how can you solve it?
Together.
And it's important. We should be able to give these answers and solve them together, instead of the onus is on just this one person. No, I think it's a collaborative effort, and we say that specialty coffee is a collaborative effort between all these different people in the supply chain, and I think we should do that.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I I saw it being there, the at your farm. One of the things that you are working on is these low intervention coffee species that are going to absolutely contribute to solutions so that we can all work together and adapt to these changes. The thing that I took from this conversation, Komal, is that there's a natural rhythm to the way that coffee plants, I guess, that when they sing, they need a rhythm from the weather and the climate to help them along the way. And when that's stressed, it doesn't work.
Yep.
And I think that is what the reality of what we're facing in coffee production around the world this year, more than any other year that came before it. And that may be my ignorance talking, but I'm definitely seeing that the top 7 coffee producing countries the coffee experienced drought at some point this year. I'm not sure that that's ever happened before. And, a couple of days ago in the Cerrado region of Brazil, there were such drastic bushfires that it wiped out the majority of the sugarcane harvests for this year, and coffee as well. And these are significant weather events that are happening. So we mentioned low intervention coffee species. That's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. Join us for that, folks. This is off to a wonderful start. I'm so happy. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon, and stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward.